Round one of the NFL draft is complete. It's in the book, so I have 9 questions here that I'm going to be using to basically react to everything that happened on Thursday night from a dynasty and fantasy football perspective. So let's get right into it with the first question. What was the biggest surprise of round one? And I mean, we all know what it is, and it's arguably the most ridiculous first round pick that I can remember in recent history. I have no idea what the Atlanta Falcons are thinking here with drafting Michael Penix at 8 overall after just signing Kirk Cousins to a major long-term deal. And this isn't really the same as the Jordan Love situation because Love was at least a late first round pick, like in the 20s somewhere, not an extremely valuable 8th overall pick that could have been like anybody else to actually help their team immediately. And Penix, in my opinion, wasn't even the best quarterback on the board at the time. I don't really know how to react to this situation, but from a rookie draft perspective, I'm probably not touching Michael Penix at all because there is no path to him starting for at least 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years down the road. If you want to look at Jordan Love as an example for dynasty value, he lost value from his initial draft day, and he didn't actually start gaining value until this time last year, 3 years after he was drafted. I can't touch Michael Penix until like round 3 in Superflex rookie drafts because it just doesn't make sense to me to waste a roster spot on essentially a dead asset for years. But moving on from the Atlanta Falcons situation, our second question is which rookie drafted in round 1 had the biggest increase in dynasty value? And as much as I would love to talk about Xavier Leggett getting first round draft capital, the answer here has to be Ricky Pearsall, who is just a tremendous fit for the 49ers offense. He literally screams being a Kyle Shanahan guy based on his Florida tape, and getting first round draft capital absolutely raises his value from both an NFL and dynasty standpoint. And not even to mention, it now seems even more likely that the Niners are going to trade away either Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk for more draft capital this weekend. So with one of them gone, that opens up the door for Pearsall to see 100 plus targets in this offense and just be an absolute weapon in this Shanahan system. I don't know if this really raises his ADP into the first round of Superflex leagues. I don't really think it should, but he is a very strong value in the early second, especially to a team that did grab a quarterback in the early first. Then you swing around and get Ricky Pearsall in the early second. And I think that's a fantastic way to kick off your rookie drafts as a more rebuilding team who deserved those picks. Now on the flip side, which rookie drafted in round 1 had the biggest decrease in dynasty value? And I'm actually going to cheat on this one a little bit and give you a name of a player who actually lost value because they weren't drafted in round 1, and that is Addison Mitchell. Now, this could all be completely fixed by him being drafted by the Bills at 33rd overall on Friday night, but my confidence in Mitchell has dropped with him not being a first-round pick. I was already kind of skeptical of the profile. His production and analytics just did not match what people believed about him on tape and where he was being projected to go in round 1, but I was putting my faith in that first round draft capital to at least show me an investment into him as a player and for his growth into a potential wide receiver 1 in the NFL. But now since he didn't go in the first round and fell to day 2, that investment now is even less of an investment to where it makes it easier to cut bait if he is not actually the guy people think he become and does not grow into the opportunity or role that people think he could, which scares me even more because of his college production profile. Again, if Buffalo takes him on Friday night, then fine, I'm back in because of the immediate situation and opportunity. But if not, and he continues to slip into the 40s or even the 50s overall, that is not a great sign for the leash he's going to be given to start his NFL career, and I am concerned about the value of Addison Mitchell moving forward. Now moving to the veterans in the NFL, which veteran increased his value on day 1 because of the NFL draft? And I think most people for this answer are probably going to go to Kyler Murray or even Daniel Jones because of the additions of the top receivers in the class, and especially in Daniel Jones's case, not drafting a quarterback was huge for him to remain the starter in that offense, and he could be a sneaky QB2 in fantasy this year with Malik Neighbors and the rushing upside that he also possesses. But my answer is actually a different quarterback in Trevor Lawrence because of the addition of Brian Thomas. This is a really perfect pairing in terms of it replacing Calvin Ridley as an X-receiver in that offense and an X-receiver who can operate as a deep threat with elite wrong speed that defenses just can't really hone in on because of all the other weapons on the offense. This is huge for both Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence, and honestly the entire Jaguars offense as a whole, to where we might finally get a consistent and borderline elite fantasy season season from Trevor Lawrence in 2024, something that we've been very eagerly waiting for since that kind of mini breakout to end the 2022 season. To me, I think this move solidifies Trevor Lawrence as a Dynasty QB1 in the top 12, which he is not valued as in April ADP. He's just outside. And I think that he has an argument to bump back into the top 10 overall over guys like Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, and maybe even Dak Prescott. Now, again, on the flip side, which veteran player lost the most value on day one because of the NFL draft? And this one to me is pretty obvious. I think it's Justin Herbert, who has been on a value slide for a couple of weeks now already since they traded away Keenan Allen and they cut Mike Williams. But the one glimmer of hope that everybody with Justin Herbert was holding on to through last night was the chance that they take either Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors at 5 overall. But unfortunately, they passed over Malik Neighbors and they drafted Joe Alt, which, don't get me wrong, that is a fantastic pick. From an NFL standpoint, that is an amazing pick. But it's just yet another sign that the team is looking to be a run-first team under Jim Harbaugh. Now, it's still possible that they draft someone on day 2, and depending on who it is, they could already be the best receiver on the team. It's just the issue is that Herbert is probably going to see a pretty nasty drop in passing volume that sustained him since entering the league, and when he does throw it, his weapons are, we'll just say, less than ideal at this point. So I'm really not even sure if Justin Herbert is even a top 10 dynasty quarterback just from this situation alone. I would easily take Kyler Murray over him. I'd take Dak Prescott over him. I'd take Trevor Lawrence over him that we just talked about. I would be willing to re-roll the dice with Caleb Williams now in the Bears offense. And Jordan Love honestly becomes an interesting conversation in terms of who I'd prefer in Dynasty. I really don't have an answer for that. But also, we got to pour one out for Michael Mayer, whose value just got absolutely obliterated by Brock Bowers being drafted there. So it feels bad to anybody who is holding on to Michael Mayer through the draft. But while we're on the topic of Brock Bowers, where would I rank him in the tight end landscape after being drafted by the Vegas Raiders? And I'm going to be honest with you, the Raiders weren't really on my radar as a possibility for Brock Bowers, but I really don't mind the landing spot. To me, he comes in as the second option on the team immediately behind only Devontae Adams, and the opportunity to grow in that offense with the immense talent that he has is unbelievable, especially if they were to draft a quarterback down the road in 2025. I would have him as my dynasty tight end 3 to 4, depending on your team's direction. I think he's very clearly behind Sam Laporta and Trey McBride, as they are both just about as young, but we've already seen the production in the NFL, so I would take the known in Laporta and McBride over the unknown of Brock Bowers, even if you believe that Brock Bowers is a superior talent. We've already seen the other two produce. I think you can still argue Mark Andrews ahead of Brock Bowers, depending on if you're competing in 2024 or not, but Bowers does have the age and talent arguments versus Mark Andrews too, so that just kind of is a coin toss at this point and really comes down to which direction you're heading in 2024. And then just to confirm, I will take Brock Bowers over TJ Hawkinson no matter what, because I think you're waiting until 2025 for any major elite production out of either of them. So why not take the younger guy with way more upside if you have to wait a year already? Moving on to the next question, who is the rookie QB2 in Dynasty after round 1? And to me, nothing changed here. I went into the draft with Jaden Daniels as my QB2, and I am leaving the draft with Jaden Daniels as my QB2. The Commanders' landing spot is fantastic for him and his skill set in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. Remember, the last time Kingsbury had a rushing quarterback that was taken early in the draft was Kyler Murray back in 2019, who then proceeded to have 3 top 10 fantasy seasons in a row, including a QB2 overall season in his second year. And he has the weapons too. He has Terry McLaurin, he has Jahan Dotson, Austin Eckler, and Brian Robinson out of the backfield, and they can still draft somebody on day 2 to add to this weapon room for their young quarterback. The upside is just way too high here with that type of a quarterback that Daniels is to not have him as the QB2 in this class and the solidified 1.03 in Superflex leagues. Question 8 here, who is the rookie wide receiver 4 in Dynasty rookie drafts after round 1? And this goes back to my answer for the biggest veteran winner from round 1, because my answer here is Brian Thomas Jr. My ranking has not changed from before the draft as to who the wide receiver 4 in this class is. It's Brian Thomas Jr. Him landing in Jacksonville was a fantastic landing spot for everybody involved. He'll have an opportunity to be the wide receiver 1 on the team, catching passes from Trevor Lawrence, who we know is a great deep ball thrower, which does fit BTJ's play style perfectly as a boundary field stretcher. I think 100 plus targets is well within the range of possibilities for him in year 1, and given that field stretching ability that he has, 900 to 1,000 receiving yards is not out of the question either, as essentially the one-for-one replacement for Calvin Ridley in that offense. I know everyone wants to probably just vault Xavier Worthy up to wide receiver 4 because he's on the Chiefs, he has Patrick Mahomes, but Brian Thomas Jr. was my wide receiver 4 coming into the draft, and he remains my wide receiver 4 after round 1 because I think BTJ himself is just a better receiving talent than Xavier Worthy, and his situation I think is just as good, if not honestly even better. And the final question here, which player am I most looking forward to being drafted on day 2? And I think just in general, it is all the running backs in this class. I'm a huge fan of the running back class this year from a depth and potential opportunity standpoint. Specifically, I'm hoping that all the rumors of Jonathan Brooks to the Cowboys comes to fruition. I would love to see Trey Benson get a starting job. Plus, we got guys like Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum, all have great opportunities to make immediate impacts on whatever team drafts them on day 2, assuming that they all go on day 2. And from a wide receiver standpoint, I love Troy Franklin as he was my pre-draft wide receiver 5, and there are still a couple landing spots for him to be an immediate day 1 starter as a wide receiver 2 or even wide receiver 1, depending on the team that drafts him. We already touched on my pre-draft wide receiver 6, Adonai Mitchell, who I am kind of concerned about, but also am still very interested in as he could be the favorite to go 33rd overall to the Buffalo Bills to kick things off on Friday night. So from a wide receiver standpoint, those are the 2 guys that I am most interested in this weekend. And just so you guys know, these questions came from an article that just dropped on DLF, which has many different answers from multiple other writers from the DLF team. So if you're interested in checking out that article and all the different answers and various opinions from these questions, you can check that out on dynastyleaguefootball.com, and make sure you use the promo code DLF video for 20% off of your annual subscription. I'll have a link for that down in the description if you guys want to check out that article, as well as tons of other content that we'll have for you guys around the NFL draft to dominate your rookie drafts this month. So check that out, guys, and we will see you in the next video. Later.